It's been 7 months now since I arrived on island, and I realized sometime over the past month I've really become to feel at home here. I don't think it's any particular event or moment, but something that's just built up gradually. I'd heard somewhere that it takes about 6 months to get acclimated to a new place, get over any sort of culture shock or anything, and that certainly seems to be the case. But I also feel that time's passing by more and more quickly, and I feel some pressure to make each day count and get a little more momentum going back on the cabin building. And I've got a lot to be thankful for. Unfortunately, one of those things isn't a goose. As is appropriate to the season, I spent this week dedicated to hunt and harvest. And appropriate to my rookie status, I came up with the big goose egg as far as waterfowl went. I don't have much experience goose hunting, and neither did the people I went out with. So we were pretty much learning as we went. Ross and his visiting friend Kevin and I took a paddle up Mare Lake. The crabapple trees were turning their fall colors on the shore. We were hunting for goose and deer. They didn't catch sight of much more than some nice scenery. That's why they call it hunting and not shooting. Joined Chris and Ellen for a trip down to South Moresby. We stopped to do the Dover Trail for a little hike. Between the two of them, they have an encyclopedic knowledge of flora and fauna and a very good eye, so they pointed out things I might otherwise just walk past, such as this mushroom, a witch's hat, caught sight of a pine marten. Chris the Mapper's skills at food collection are up to snuff, and he collected such edibles as these elven saddle mushrooms and caught this beautiful little cutthroat with light fly tackle, which he fried up with some onions and butter for our dinner that evening. Thankfully, I don't need to depend on what I hunt and harvest in order to eat. I can also be thankful that I was invited to a couple of Thanksgiving dinners. As for the Canada goose, it's still very early in the season, so perhaps I'll get one in time for Christmas dinner. But if anyone out there has goose hunting tips or can point me to some good goose hunting resources, I'd be very interested to hear them.
Hi, I'm Meredith, and I've been living on North Beach here in Haida Gwaii for 10 years. We're beyond the power lines, about 16 kilometers from Masa, and after living with candles and kerosene lamps for a few years, we actually erected the first wind turbine on North Beach, and we have wind and solar produced electricity here for 5 cabins and a bakery that's open in the summer called Moon over Naikun Bakery. This place really seems limitless sometimes, and there's a lot of potential to create a really good example to the rest of the world for how it's possible to live really well and possible to, at the same time, live sustainably. So we might be on the edge of the world out here on this windswept island in the Pacific Northwest, but with a little bit of imagination, we can have the same technology and live similar types of lives as people in an urban environment.
He gathered together a convoy of 4 trucks, 4 couples, 2 quads, 2 babies and a dog to get a stove and a 6x5 window out over about 20 kilometers worth of beach, brush and driftwood to where his place is. I'd used to complain about having to lug my stuff up 50 feet of path to my building site, but I have nothing on him. But it was also a week of working on other people's game. I paid a couple social visits, which both ended up in rolling up the sleeves and helping carve up some meat for the freezer. whether it was island deer or moose from off island. And the deer seem to get more and more scarce as time wears on. So if I want to get enough deer for the freezer this winter, I better get on that as well as the firewood. My woodshed's only half full, half empty, whatever. My cabin's going to be completely cold unless I can find some good dry wood. I enjoyed my first Halloween here on island, and the mapper got Burt Reynolds right down to the chest hairs there. I went as the undead version of Dr. David Suzuki. Incidentally, one of his daughters lives here on island, and he was up for that totem raising back in the spring. I'd like to think that he'd be down with my zombie homage to him. And we lucked out. We got a good clear weather that night. A couple nights before, it was raining viciously and winds were hitting 130 kilometers an hour. But even with that gruesome weather, people were bundling up and getting out onto the beach at night with the dropping tide. The winds were rocking and whipping our rain gear around us. Even so, it felt better being out in the elements than back in my cabin later, since I was scared silly that 50-foot standing dead tree on the woodward side of my cabin was going to come down and through the roof. I ended up sleeping on the couch instead of up in the loft. And the next day I called a local faller, Alvin, who's 67 and had been retired for a couple of years. He brought his grandson Edison with him. Between the two of them, they dropped the 3 trees in about 40 minutes, I guess based on about 40 years worth of experience. I was absolutely thankful for that. It's dangerous work. I just know better to leave it to people who know what they're doing. I took the wood that Alvin bucked for me and split it and put it in the woodshed. It's spruce, which is crappy stuff to burn, but at least the woodshed feels a little bit more full. I don't know if it was all that time spent downloading Google images of Dr. Suzuki for my Halloween costume, but it got me thinking of environmental matters, I guess, and the footprint I have here living this kind of lifestyle versus in a more urban environment. Also a more pressing issue, which is the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline proposed, which may result in massive tankers of crude oil coming off these shores and along the BC coast. But anyway, no time here, so maybe I'll share my thoughts in another video post.